Good morning and welcome to this panel. We're so delighted to have everybody come and attend. We want to make sure that we want to thank everybody here in the room as well as thanking everybody out there that's streaming. We want to bring you a very bright and informative discussion on how we can achieve economic development and independence in the African American community. I'm going to start with a small story. My name is Richard Johnson. I'm the director of the Booker T. Washington Initiative with Texas Public Policy Foundation. And I grew up in between a rural community and an urban community because my folks are from the country in Louisiana off a farm, and we've had that farm in our family since 1880. And so we've been business people, it seems like, for generations, forever. I grew up in that environment. And then when I would come to Houston, I lived in Pleasantville. I was born in 5th Ward, raised in Pleasantville, which is an all-black community. And my doctor was black, the hospital was black, the community was black, the church was black, the plumbers, the electricians, the home builders. Everybody that touched my life pretty much in my formative years were African Americans. And so I'm used to the dollars circulating in our communities. I'm used to economic independence because that's all I ever saw. And my grandmother, who was born in 1895, my grandfather was also born in 1895, and he served in the First World War. And he ran the farm. And my grandmother used to always say, boy, if you don't work, you'll steal. So learn how to work. Learn a trade, learn how to be of value to your community in working. And so when I came, I was spending my time in Houston, I would see the people who cut our yards, the yard men. They were all African American. They had 200 or 300 yards. People who, built cabinets. Everything that touched our lives was about economic development, self-sufficiency, and moving forward in a positive way. And I learned that from both the men and women in our community. So nowadays, things have changed a little bit. And we're going to talk a little bit about how things have changed and how we need to go back and take a look at some of the things that we had in our communities in the past and bring them forward in today's futuristic kind of way, an information age kind of way, through career technology education. I am joined today by a wonderful, distinguished panel, and they're going to tell their stories a little bit and give a little bit about what they're doing to help us move the black community back toward economic self-sufficiency and independence. To my far left, we'll start on the far left. Usually we start with ladies first, and I mean...
It's okay.
You started off with the shortest folks. Right?
Yeah, we're going to start with our far left, and that is Commissioner Julian Alvarez, and he's with the Texas Workforce Commission. He represents the interests of 14 million Texas workers. And he also was previously president and CEO of the Rio Grande Valley Partnership, as well as the Texas Regional Director for Texas State Senator Kay Bailey Hutchison.
U.S. State Senator.
U.S.
Senator.
U.S.
Yes,
Senator.
yes.
We don't want to mess that up.
Yeah, no.
And he's also the sharpest dresser I know.
This suit belongs to Dillard's. I'm taking it back after.
Well, Julian he's also received the CTE Champion Award for Career and Technology Education. So he's a big proponent of career technology education and workforce development and training skills for young people who are in high school, community colleges, and those students who may or may not want to go on and get a 4-year bachelor's degree or master's degree or doctorate degree. They can get out into the workforce and do what my dad and my granddad and all those folks were doing, who learned trades, earned decent living, and raised people like me to get a terminal degree in education.
That's correct.
And so next I want to introduce my good friend, my former boss, It's not often you get a chance to introduce your former boss.
That's true.
Yeah, the person who taught you so much.
We still like each other.
State Representative Sean Theory. She's the first and only woman to be elected to House District 146 in Houston. She's now serving her third term. She has been a champion for women's rights, women's issues, and equality issues across the state of Texas. She's authored over 57 bills, so she is a hard worker on the Hill. I've known her to be a sincere fighter for liberty, for justice, for everybody. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. Representative Theory is a fighter in that regard. She sits on the Transportation Committee, Land and Resource Management, and the House Administration Committee. And she was also elected as one of the most popular Democrats in Texas, one of the top 30 most influential women in Houston, and a rising star, no doubt, not just in Houston, the state of Texas, but in the United States.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, it's okay, yeah. And last but not least, I want to introduce Mr. Larry Ivory. Mr. Larry Ivory is the president and CEO of the Illinois State Black Chamber of Commerce. He's also the chairman of the board for the National Black Chamber of Commerce, which is officed in Washington, D.C. Mr. Ivory was also appointed by the Illinois Senator and Senate President John Collerton as the Procurement Policy Board member, and every piece of policy or legislation that comes before them dealing with procurement, Mr. Ivory is there to make sure that the African American community has inclusion and is supported in that, in those conversations. Because if you're not in the conversations, you're not at the table. If you're not at the table, they used to say, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. So we want to be at the table. We want to be a part of discussions. We want to be included in procurement. We want to be included into economic development, stimulation, and promote self-sufficiency across America. So with that being said, I'm going to now give my panelists an opportunity to just give us some interesting thoughts about you that I didn't say in your bios. And we'll start with Commissioner. You're on deck.
Well, thank you. Thank you. First of all, I want to thank you, Dr. Johnson, for allowing the Texas Workforce Commission to be a part of today's discussion.
Thank you.
And allowing us to be able to share with folks not only that are present today, but those that are streaming us, the services that the Texas Workforce Commission has to offer. And so you're right. Prior to COVID-19, the services that we provided, some of them stopped, or some of them were going really well. As he referenced earlier, I represent the interests of 14 million working Texans. As you know, I would be remiss if I didn't explain to the folks or acknowledge that we do have challenges right now with those individuals that are receiving unemployment insurance benefits. So I'd be remiss if I didn't say that. But just so that you know, our agency experiences about 62 calls every second of the day. So imagine in 5 seconds how many calls you're receiving. So we're in the millions, and we're doing our very best. So again, I just wanted to make that clear. But I also want to make the viewers know that there are some really good programs that we have put in place. And I would also be remiss if I didn't thank the representative that's with me here for being such a great leader. You may not know this, but she doesn't just represent the interest of Houston, but she represents the interests of all Texans. And so we're very grateful to that, for continuing to support us in JET programs. And you'll see this later in my presentation, skills development and other things that are very important. Serving on the Transportation Committee is very important to us because we provide services for those individuals that are TANF and SNAP recipients. So thank you, Dr. Johnson. I will tell you this. In 2016, when Governor Abbott appointed me, one of the first people I met was Dr. Johnson and Representative Jarvis Johnson. And the first thing they told me to do is, you got to go to the 5th Ward. And I said, is that a hospital nearby? And they said, no, that is in Houston. And I did. So thank you for that. And being able to meet with your colleagues at Texas Southern, which, by the way, I referee collegiate football, and that's the only university I've ever been booed out of. But that's all right. After further review, I got the call right for those that are here. But thank you, Dr. Johnson, for allowing me to be a part of today's discussion.
Thank you so much for being here with us. Representative Theory, you've done so much in the state of Texas in your 3 terms, over your last 2 terms, and we're expecting wonderful things from you in this 3rd term. You've been a strong supporter of career technology education, getting young folks back to work and giving them that opportunity, you know, to not just think about liberal arts and sciences, but also think about, you know, careers in computer technology, careers in mechanics, in electricians, becoming electricians, and just the trades. Tell us a little bit about your passion.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Johnson, so much for having me today. I'd like to thank the Texas Public Policy Foundation for having me. Thank you to Commissioner Julian for being here with me, too. So it really is a privilege and a pleasure to speak with you all today. I want to talk to you a little bit later when I don't know if this is actually my segment. I'll get into the weeds a little bit more about specific policies that I have advanced in the Tex Ledge to create more opportunities for young people in career technology education. I like to say, I may date myself, but remember the commercial, it's not your father's Oldsmobile. This is really not your father's career technology anymore. We've got lots and lots of opportunities. It's not always just plumbing and welding and electricity. We have opportunities now, so much, even in like intelligence, artificial intelligence. You know, there are many, many opportunities for our young people who are so talented. And I'm going to talk about something that Governor Abbott was really, really out on front about, which is the middle skills gap. And it mirrors the opportunity gap that we're seeing in many of our African American communities. And so by bridging the opportunities to close the middle skills gap, we can also create opportunities for young people where they can get out in the workforce, be productive, and contribute back to the state of Texas, and truly, I feel, achieve the American dream. I'll tell you just a little bit about my district. I represent House District 146, and I like to say, I brag on it all the time, that it is the best district because I think it's so reflective of what we really, really all want, which is inclusion and diversity. It's a very diverse, rich district. Raise your hand if you've ever been to the Astrodome. That's the district. I know it's not operating right now. We have NRG Park, but that's pretty much the heart of my district. I have notable landmarks such as Memorial Hermann Hospital in the Med Center, Texas Women's Hospital. More babies are born in that hospital. It is the hospital that delivers more babies for the entire state of Texas, the Texas Women's Hospital, right in our district. The Veterans Administration Hospital is also in the district, and I do a lot of work also. Dr. Johnson knows for veterans. Houston Baptist University. So it's a very, very diverse and rich district. I have also some of the most historic African American communities in my district as well. So it gives me the opportunity to be out in the district, up close and personal. So I see the need, I hear the need, and I'm able to go back to the legislature and create opportunities in response to that need. The last part I want to make a nod to you is we certainly try to help you with some of that heavy lifting. What a lot of people don't know is you certainly have the opportunity to contact your state rep. If you or anyone you know, anyone listening is dealing with an unemployment issue, many, many times they call our office. You get them every 60 seconds. We might get them every 6 minutes sometimes. And so we provide those constituent services. We will call and say, well, we'll reach out to folks at your office and say, hi, we have a constituent. We're just looking at their case, making sure their application was processed properly. If they made a mistake on their end, we can kind of help correct that and get it through so that you all don't get in that bottleneck. And so we have seen with the pandemic, unfortunately, you know, obviously increased unemployment, and you all are doing a great job. We see it every day, and we open and close cases, and we're so proud when they call back and say, thank you, Representative, we got in contact with TWC, and I got my case, I got my check, and I'm able to sustain for a while longer. So a little later, Dr. Johnson, when you want to talk about, you know, get in the deep dive about specific bills this session that will help in what I believe that are on par, should I say, with Governor Abbott's initiative in closing the middle skills gap. I'd love to get into that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Representative Theory.
Thank you.
And I want to now give Larry Ivory an opportunity to give us that 30,000-foot view, that national perspective, as well as a local perspective on initiatives that the National Black Chamber of Commerce are engaged in right now to advance African Americans toward economic independence.
Well, it's my pleasure. First of all, let me thank the exceptional moderator who I've had a chance to talk to a couple times, to the state rep and to the commissioner and this distinguished panel. On the national side, our big issues that we're focusing on is corporate responsibility, equity, and fairness. We have a number of initiatives that's led by one of my colleagues, is John Harmon, who sits on the board of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, taking a real dive at corporate responsibility. We have the comment that, we were, from an African-American perspective, we were intentionally left out, created a habit of being left out, and then created a culture of being left out. Our goal is to change that by being intentionally included, create a habit of inclusion, and then therefore change a culture of inclusion. Do we have to do that through really understanding the challenges we have from an economic perspective? We believe that if you strengthen Black businesses, you strengthen Black communities, and you also strengthen the state, you strengthen the United States at the same time. Because when opportunities exist and people are employed and they're working and they're contributing, crime goes down, and we make ourselves far more attractive in our regions and throughout the country. So our major initiative is corporate responsibility and equity on the procurement side. We also have a strong initiative in terms of corporate putting more African Americans and minorities on corporate boards. And then more importantly, at the same time, creating jobs and opportunities and giving back to the community. I'm excited, in spite of some of the significant challenges we have in front of us. But I think when we're forced to take an honest look at some of the challenges we have, I think what we see is our ability to really kind of transform ourselves, to change our thinking, and probably bring attention to something that probably wouldn't have had as much as attention as we're getting right now. The pandemic has been devastating to small businesses, especially Black businesses across the country. And we're doing everything we can from a policy side to give them a lifeline, to ensure that they survive. We hope that as the new stimulus money come out, that it's going to be, we're weighing in to make sure that it gets to the gig economy, some of the smaller businesses who didn't get a chance to participate.
Thank you, Larry. And one of the things that our leader here at Texas Public Policy Foundation always says is that we're here to charge the hill. We're going to make it work, even though we understand that the pandemic has brought a lot of dampening circumstances on our economies across America. But Julian, let's talk a little bit about what you guys are doing over there in the governor's tri-agency workforce initiative, and how you guys are meeting the needs of workers right now, and then encouraging Texans to engage the process.
Well, taking this opportunity to thank Governor Abbott for charging not only the Texas Workforce Commission, but the TEA and higher ed to work together. Many conversations I've had around the country and traveled this great nation of ours, we've been able to share with everyone the tri-agency report. No other state does that. The fact that we're talking about stackable credentials, the fact that we talk about CTE opportunities, apprenticeship programs, internships, 1032, your bill that I know you'll reference, those things are possible for everyone. Think about what's happened since the pandemic. Think of all the companies that have actually moved over to Texas as a result. Heck, we even got the national championship here. Think about all the great things that have been happening in this great state of ours. Tesla now just down the street, Oracle, and companies that continue, the LNGs that are at the port of Brownsville. I mean, think about what's happened, the transformation that's happened during the pandemic. So we had an opportunity to listen to a lot of stakeholders, which was our charge, was to provide information just like what we're doing here today, working with our counterparts, our other agencies, looking at ways to make school and higher ed affordable. Making it affordable for every Texan, regardless of where you come from, whether it's rural Texas or the border like where I come from. I mean, think of the options that are out there right now. Yesterday, I had an opportunity to talk to hundreds of CTE students at Texas A&M through TEKS, talking to them about the value of higher education, stackable credentials. By the way, just so that you know, to be successful in this great state of ours, you don't have to possess a 4-year degree. Think about it. How many of us would be in this room if the air conditioner wasn't working or the heater? We need plumbers. We need electricians. We need folks that are in VR, as Representative said. That equipment is possible through the agency that I represent. We are listening to stakeholders, and I'm glad to see Mr. Ivory on the phone or with us today because Mr. Ivory plays a big part. Mr. Ivory represents the interest of the business community, not only at the state level, but at the national level. We are proactive in this great state of ours. Think about it. For us to have Tesla, we had to have had in place folks locally that were going to be able to be trained, that skilled workforce. Thank Governor Abbott for that, and thank your representatives for making it possible for continuing to support great programs like the JET program, programs that allow equipment to be actually embedded in schools, ISDs, and community colleges around the state, even serving those people with a disability. We have welding equipment with stations for individuals that are on wheelchairs. And think about what's happening just down the street, where we fund robotics competition. It's FIRST Robotics. Every year, there's a state UIL championship that takes place in the Dallas area. But we saw that there was a need for individuals that had a disability to participate just as well. So with the help of my 2 commissioners, we increased the funding. And part of that funding is for individuals. And I like to take baby steps, probably because I'm 5'5". But I will tell you that we are now allowing individuals that are deaf. And the School for the Deaf just down the street received one of those grants. And we have now students that are going to be participating in a robotics competition. Thank you for that. And let's talk about what happened with Hurricane Harvey. Hurricane Harvey was the worst natural disaster this country, not the state, had ever faced. Hurricane Harvey didn't hit the representative's district once. It didn't hit it twice. It hit it 3 times. But yet, we were able to put, with the help of Representative and Sylvester Turner and some great folks, like Nicholas Morgan, who represents a college down there or a school that trains individuals with industry-recognized credentials to put them back to work. And Paul Puente, representing the plumbing and piping group, the building trades, that had a program that we were able to train folks in weeks and have them out there working. Which, by the way, the unemployment rate prior to COVID-19 was 3.4, lowest it's ever been. But yet, after Hurricane Harvey, Houston was less than 3.4 after Hurricane Harvey as a result of what we did. That's what Texans do. Now, Dr. Johnson, I could go on and on about what we've done with the tri-agency, but I will tell you this, for all those that are listening and all those that are here today. Continue to allow individuals early on, before they identify a pathway, allow these individuals to have options. It is important for us to create options for these individuals. Now, there's nothing wrong with going to Texas Southern or ACC or some of the finest institutions, or UT where we're at today. But there are a lot of students that want to be welders. Don't discourage them. There are a lot of folks that want to be an IT, cybersecurity specialist. There are a lot of great pain. By the way, Representative and I and you, Dr. Johnson, we don't put people in jobs. Like Mr. Ivory, we put people in careers. So again, these are just part of the things that we were charged with. And I just thought I would kind of touch on that 100-foot ceiling.
Yeah, look, you're hitting the nail.
Because I can go on and on.
No,
let me tell you.
I
got this suit for another hour. So I got,
I'm going to tell you, you're doing a great job. Look, you're hitting the nail directly on the head. Just a quick story. When I was coming up, in high school, Hughes Tools had a cooperative agreement with Houston Independent School District. And so the students that took drafting were taught how to design drill bits. And the students that took metal shop were taught how to read the designs and make the drill bits. And so my friend that grew up down the street from me, remember we both grew up in an all-black community. Now, my parents came from Louisiana from the farm. And so they were tradespeople. My mother was a seamstress. She made drapes. My dad drove a truck. And David's mom was a teacher, and we stayed on the same block. David's mom was a teacher, and his dad was the principal. But David loved drafting and metal shop. And I said, I need to go to college. And so I got to either play basketball or hit the books or do both, because I gotta secure me a ride to college. And so I got a scholarship to go to college when we graduated. David went right to work for Hughes Tools. So I come home for the break in my sophomore year. You could see the ground. I mean, you could see the actual road from my car, you know, because it was worn out. I was driving a hoopty. And so I come home and I'm looking for David. So I go down to his mom's house. She said, well, David just bought his home. I say, David bought a home? David's got a brand new home? And he said, yeah. And then I looked David, I said, call David. He comes out to the neighborhood in a brand new car. I said, man, I shouldn't have went to metal shop. And I should have went to drafting just like you. But the deal is, you know, back then, there was nothing wrong with the trades. We didn't look down on the trades. You know, I mean, if someone in the neighborhood needed their plumbing fixed, everybody called Mr. Randall. Mr. Randall ended up buying 5 houses in the neighborhood. But Larry, let me pitch it to you real quick. Where did we go wrong in our thinking and putting the perception out there? In order for us to be successful, everyone has to have a bachelor's, master's, or doctorate degree in liberal arts and science. Where did we go wrong, and how can we get back real quick? Then I'll pitch it to Representative Theory.
Well, you know, it's amazing. You know, my story was that, I was introduced to the trade. Matter of fact, I was in an apprenticeship program to be a plumber. And as life was a habit, I did not become a plumber. I did go on into school and ended up being an investment banker working for Merrill Lynch and Citigroup as vice president. I started a hedge fund. But, you know, one of the things that I think has been so important for us to understand is, you know, what we think does matter and what we say does matter at the same time. And when we start telling young people that the trades are jobs that are not attractive, I can tell you, I have friends who are in the trades and construction, and it is one of the most lucrative opportunities to make a living and to take care of a family. And I think what we have to do is really get laser beam focused on making sure that people understand the tremendous opportunity, bring the trades into our schools. It used to be in our schools, and we made a mistake by, I think we made a big mistake by taking it out of our schools. And I don't know if they did that all across the United States, but for the most part, you know, we just simply got focused on the education, the doctors, the attorneys, everything except the trades, and quite frankly, in the African American and minority communities. But I think it's coming back, because when you don't go on to go to a 4-year college, there's a great career of being an electrician, being a plumber, being a pipe fitter. I mean, all these things are great opportunities to take care of your family and to make a living. I think our big challenge for us is, one, to get back to the basics, get back to this world cannot operate without the air conditioners, the HVCs, and, for HVACs, and they can operate without people building the roads and highways and infrastructure. And we just got to make sure that people get a chance to listen to people who are in the trades and understand that this is a very respectable living. You can make a great income, and you can be able to do some wonderful things. So, and you can start some companies. When you're into trades, it's a pathway to owning your own construction company. And when you own your own construction company, you really get good at it. Then you have a tremendous opportunity, not only to make a good living, but you can make a living for a lot of other people. And you can give them a chance that they would not have had because you started the company. And the reality of it is that minorities hire people that look like them. So the more we can focus on the trades and understand the value that they bring to the table, it's good for our communities, it's good for the states, good for the United States to have people more focused on the trades.
Thank you, Larry. And I'm going to pitch it to Representative Theory. You know, walking around our communities, we see a lot of young men who are participating sometimes in economic development the wrong way. And I had an opportunity, I had a chance to speak with some of those young men. I said, well, look, if I could find you a job making the same amount of money that you're making right now doing the wrong thing, would you put that down and pick this up? And Representative Theory, each one of those young men said, Mr. Johnson, I don't have to make the same amount of money that I'm making right now. I can make less money, but if you can help us find honest, decent work, you know, we would put this down in a heartbeat, because I wouldn't have to worry about dying. I wouldn't have to worry about going to prison. I wouldn't have to worry about, you know, breaking my mother's heart, you know. And Representative Theory, you have been doing that. You've been a champion for that with your career technology education bills and, you know, paid apprenticeships, paid internship bills, because we recognize a lot of these young men are coming up in households with just their mom there. And they're looking to help their mothers. And you have found a way, and from a policy standpoint, to say, look, put that down. You can earn while you learn, and then create a relationship with industry. So you can do what David did. You know, David went straight to use tools.
Right.
You know, talk a little bit about that for us.
And just for context, I want to say that I think it's so important that the real issue is, just like this young man you spoke with, is people don't know where to go and where to start. I'll just give an example. Recently, I spoke about the COVID-19 vaccine. There are so many folks who are eligible for it, whether they're seniors or people that have a pre-existing condition, and they said, where do I find it? I call and it's booked. And so I talked about the need to bring the vaccines to the people. And now I'm starting to see that there are mobile sites now, just like we did for testing, where you can drive up, get your vaccine, and go on about your life. The same thing with this. We need to bring the opportunities to the young people, to the students. So last session, I'm just going to read you a little bit, some statistics, because I wanted to make sure that the data supported the policy. I had mentioned to you that Governor Abbott addressed this middle skills gap, and that it's a concern because we want to keep Texas competitive. So even if you don't, for those who are listening who'll say, well, I don't really want to, African-American entrepreneurship or pathway to economic development doesn't affect me. Well, we're all connected because we're all Texans, and we want our economy to remain strong, and we want to keep Texas competitive. So even from that standpoint, it's very, very important, beyond it being what someone may feel the right thing to do. So when Governor Abbott referenced that, I did some research, and I found that there was this gap, but that students that took CTE courses had a higher graduation rate than those that did not. So it lowered the dropout rate. And everyone, you know, I know you've been talking about this, some of those students do decide at a certain point in their life to go on and get a college degree. It's about touching them while they're there to keep them engaged and learning. So I filed this last session, I've refiled it this session, HB 1032, write that down. What it does is allow private business to provide internship, apprenticeship opportunities paid for students. So exactly like Dr. Johnson said, they can earn while you learn through nonprofits. So instead of just coming over and being an intern and getting that skill set but not having an opportunity to get a salary, it would be funded. We have the funding for this already set up. The mechanism is already there in the state. Private business is very excited about it, and the nonprofits are able, with that as a conduit, are able to do this. And so this allows these students to become engaged. So once they've already completed the program, as you've heard, they go right out and get in the plumbing program or the welding program or the electrician program. And what we know is from that point, as they continue to earn a living, you talked about, there's an opportunity for them to then become an entrepreneur. They may then open their own business and open another one. And before you know it, Dr. Johnson, There's, as you said, there's someone buying 5 houses. Well, he may have 5 locations employing 500 people. And so I believe that is the ultimate pathway for economic independence in our most underserved communities. Many of the high schools that I represent in my district have already contacted me about this. They're very excited about it. The bill did pass the House last session. We got it over to the Senate and it ran out of time. Those who are engaged in the legislative process know what that's like when you're trying to race to the end. And so I believe this is a new model for igniting entrepreneurial spirit in our young people. I talk a lot when I go out to the schools about the 3 Ps, and I call them preparation, persistence, and purpose. And so I believe that the paid internships, and the CTE training prepares the students. It's going to give them the skill set that they need. It's going to allow them to persist. And when I say persist, at this point, I really mean sustainability. There are thousands of young people that are talented out there that start off the right way and they fall by the wayside because there was just nothing to sustain them. So while they're learning and earning, it provides the opportunity for them to persist in the skill and open the door to full-time jobs. And then finally, I believe after people find out what they're good at and what they like, it's purpose. You find your purpose, you walk in that purpose, and you get in the driver's seat, and you're in a position then to make a viable contribution back to our economy and be an employer. So with those 3 Ps, I believe this legislation that I have creates that pathway. And so I'm working on all sides of the aisle. I'll take a point of personal privilege to tell you this. You mentioned Dr. Johnson to say something about us that you didn't know. I didn't know if it was like a fun fact, like I like to cook or something like that. But I'm also a lawyer in my other life. And so I've been practicing law 25 years. And what I will share with you, and I'm mentioning this for the point of the legislature, is what most people don't know is when you file lawsuits, almost 80% of them are settled before you get to the courtroom and have to duke it out. And so I came into the legislature with that mindset that I would be negotiating and mediating and working with people on all sides of the aisle. And in my term, I will say, I think I've been successful at that. So I approach every issue that way. And what people don't see on the news is, particularly in the Texas House, we vote a lot of times right down the aisle similar. It's just some hot issues where people are divided, and we respect the fact that we should vote our districts. We should vote to support what our constituents want us to do. However, on bills like House Bill 1032, I had colleagues from both sides come over and say, this is a great piece of legislation. Although you live in Houston, Rep. Theory, and that's an urban community, I live in a rural community, and I have rural high school students that need the same opportunities. Right, so it was a great feeling to have people come over and say this wasn't about only black or only white. It wasn't about only urban or only rural. This was about what was best for all Texans that have the need. And so my commitment to you is that's my approach on the issues where I can do that. And so if you can continue to just stay engaged and I challenge you to approach politics the same way because as we know, our country is in a big divide right now, and I think that we can also bridge that gap if we can find common ground. And I believe this is one place to do that. Thank you.
Commissioner, you're doing earth-shattering work over there at Texas Workforce Commission for 14 million workers out there. What are some of the things that are challenging you right now, and that you want this audience to know that you may need some help in pushing that heavy lift forward?
Well, you would have thought that, as I referenced earlier, that COVID would have been challenging for us. We do have the unemployment insurance side of the agency that's made it challenging as far as putting benefits out. But I will tell you that we did ask our 28 workforce boards and then some of those programs that we actually have in place to de-obligate money. So if I could put up my screenshot, I have a picture. Now, this picture says a picture's worth 1,000 words. This is a picture of a grant, a JET grant, that we spoke about earlier that was made possible because of our legislators that represent the interest of all Texans. This grant was given to us to provide our future workforce with the skills needed. Industry recognized CDL license. This is a JET grant that was awarded to the Lee College Incarceration Facility at Huntsville Prison. These individuals are all going to graduate as truck drivers. So we're doing our part, Dr. Johnson. We're doing our very best to make sure that we have the skilled workforce. But as I referenced to you earlier, prior to COVID, we were at 3.4. And people were coming to me saying, we need folks to get out there and pick up a skill. Everyone's working. So folks like Jim Tipton out of Brownsville, Texas, who on his own dime trained individuals at the local community college on how to be mechanics. Or how about these individuals that are training to be CDL licensed or to have a CDL license, certified industry recognized credential, but with no job, or as we say, no career. Let's continue having these types of conversations, Dr. Johnson. That's my challenge.
And you're calling, it sounds like you're calling on industry.
I am calling on industry, and I'm so glad that that Mr. Ivory, I think I promoted him, but Mr. Ivory's on with us, because it's a combination of the viewers that are listening to us, those that are here participating, and then of course those that represent the interest of everyone. Again, you've heard multiple times how the governor has charged us all to work together. Let me tell you, there are other states that are trying to replicate the great stuff that we're doing. The tri-agency report that I'll leave here with you, the fact that we have opportunities for individuals, like I said earlier, for those individuals that are incarcerated. And I spoke earlier about those individuals that have a disability. We're training those individuals right now, thinking outside the box, because of what has been given to us, that now we know that folks can be successful working from home. CVS Pharmacy has an apprenticeship program where they're training pharmacy technicians. Now you may think, now I'm handicapped. How is that person going to work at a CVS Pharmacy? They're in a wheelchair. Did you know that maybe if you call a 1-800 number, you may be talking to a representative from CVS Pharmacy that's working from the convenience of their home, thanks to TWC and the local community college and the board. Someone who may even have the materials or the equipment to be successful, a Braille book, or maybe a desk that's been made just to suit them, or a big screen for those individuals that have visual impairment. We make that possible. You all make that possible because you've come to us saying there is a need. Just as I was walking over here, we got a call that they reached out to the governor's office, and they want to focus on individuals that are blind. What are we doing for them? I know we have Jason Shaw, who represents the interests of deaf people. His company, by the way, Jason's deaf, and started the first Deaf Chamber of Commerce. Do you know that this individual, Jason Shaw, wants to train at the local college here at ACC individuals that are deaf, and what they're going to do is make solar panels. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been doing it. We've been doing it. So when we talk about the challenges, all it's done is how we're utilizing our money and how we're telling folks that there are options out there and there are great careers for everyone. Down in San Antonio, do you know that these high school students are receiving a registered apprenticeship program, a certification in making tiny homes? We're the only ones in the country that make tiny homes. Heck, Secretary came down to visit that location. We do so many great things in this great state. And having platforms like this, I want to thank the Texas Public Policy Foundation for allowing us to be able to convey that message to you. And again, Dr. Johnson, I could go on and on and on about all the great things that are going on. But actually, it's because of folks like you that say, hey, by the way, you were talking about a population. Have you ever thought about doing this? And we're like, you know what? It's allowed us to be open-minded, and we've challenged our staff to look at ways to make things possible.
The Representative Theory, on that note, Commissioner Alvarez, he just needs, you guys going for the budget, he just needs more money. They got to do more. Right. He didn't want to say it, but I'll say it for him.
Well, I will say, as it relates to that, I wanted to clarify that point. The funding mechanism is in place to incentivize the private industry to come and get these grant reimbursements to fund the apprenticeships. So we have that part covered.
So thank you for JET.
Yes,
thank you for what you've done. Think of, I've done many commencement speeches, and the one that's probably made me tear was the one where these 200 inmates that you just saw received an associate degree.
And I know that we're up on the Q&A portion of the program right now, but I just want to give a brief 2 minutes to Mr. Larry Ivory to talk a little bit about the rebound program because Commissioner Alvarez mentioned what they're doing for folks who are incarcerated in terms of helping them get licensing and tying them into industry. And I know that you guys at the National Black Chamber of Commerce have taken an interest in that.
Well, we have, we think, there's a lot happening all across the country. Most people know that there's a significant push on cannabis, legalizing cannabis, and a lot of people have been incarcerated for cannabis, small amounts of cannabis, and so you're having reform. And what we have to do is that my father was a minister and pastored for 40 years, and when you grow up in the church, you understand that he who be without sin cast the first stone. Everyone deserves a second chance. And when we have individuals who made a mistake, we have, in my opinion, we are our brother keepers. And we have a moral obligation to do what we can to make them a real productive member of society. It's in our best interest to do so. And we have to make the investment. And when you have programs that go into the prisons and take a serious look at getting people prepared, not just letting people out, but getting people prepared for a career inside the prison. So when they get out, they have an opportunity to succeed. They need an opportunity, if they don't have their licenses, to get their license. They need an opportunity for training, for housing. There's a lot of things I think, we've invested in. We've invested a lot of money in all kinds of foreign initiatives, but we need to invest in people. And people is the strength of this great country of ours. And to not make that investment, I think, is truly a mistake that we've made. But I think we can refocus our attention and do a lot more as it relates to getting people prepared when they leave the prison system to have a tremendous opportunity while they're in there to get the training necessary. And then when they get out, they have a support system that allows them to be a productive member of society. And we got to continue to invest. That's a great return on investment when we do that. And we got to ask corporate America, to do more, in terms of their profitability, to give more to the communities and support initiatives that really make a positive impact upon the whole country in our communities. And, we just got to do more of that at the end of the day. So we're proud to support initiatives that really have a positive impact. And then, at the same time, even when you get out, you have an opportunity to start your own business if you got some expertise and some knowledge, and we got to give them all the support they can so they can become productive members of society.
I totally agree with you. We need jobs, jobs, jobs. We need industry to link in and make sure that and what I'm hearing you say, bridge that gap. It's one thing to learn a skill. It's one thing to be prepared. It's another thing to be able to get a job and feed your family. And that's the vein, that's the road, that's the pathway that we're going down right now. And we have come to the moment of Q&A. And so if there are any folks out in the audience who have a question for our panelists, we open the floor up right now. I see a hand going up, this young man, and then this young lady over here.
Oh, sure. Hi, thanks so much for being here. My question was, what do y'all think, to anyone on the panel, would be the most effective way of kind of destigmatizing trades and apprenticeships as valid and equal educations?
I'll open that up to the panelists.
I was going to tell you that I'm always really big and that we have to speak intentional and it's language and what have you. So I always talk about when I go out to the schools, I don't always even use the word trade, because as you mentioned, it has this stigma associated with it. I just talk about skills development and developing expertise and allowing students to become an expert at a career. And so when I was in high school, we had these vocational programs, which were it wasn't always welding, but it was an aspect of that. But I think once we start to go out and we talk about earning while you learn, as Governor Abbott has mentioned, I don't see anything that would be a stigma about that, you know, getting an internship. You know, I have interns that come to me at the Capitol right now from UT and work. We don't call them apprenticeships, you know, they're internships, externships. So I think the more it becomes more popular, and if, for example, if my piece of legislation gets to pass and you have small business owners that are able to receive these grants and they're able to go out and hire students and pay students and see the success that comes from that, I think it erases that stigma. The success from the program, it may take a while, but once people see that it works and you start to get those testimonies, like Dr. Johnson's telling the testimony of Dave from, not to date you, but from a long time ago, right?
From back in the day.
A long time ago, a long time ago's days, as they say. But news travels at the speed of light now. We've got social media at our disposal, and so I believe that's another way we can link that in. We've got to form some connectivity to talk about these programs. So when we put them on social media and we brand them the right way, our young people will get engaged and they'll be excited about it. There won't be a stigma. It's just, you know, earn while you learn, become successful. I think that the small business, I always say, is the economic engine for our state. And so when we craft these as just beyond a job, and as you stated, a career, and we talk about that it's a pathway to becoming a business owner, that has to be the conversation, that it's more than just a here and now. You know, this is how you can build your future, how you can become a business owner and a homeowner. You know, I think that we have to approach it that way. So I would say it's our language, how we talk about it, how we speak about it, but also how we market it. And I believe social media is going to have to become a part of it, because I always tell my staff, if it ain't on social media, it didn't happen, because that's just the way of the world now, and that's where all the young people are engaged. And so I think we have to go and meet them where they are.
And industry has done their part. I think they're sharing with folks like Amazon Web Services, saying we don't really need to be a developer anymore with a 4-year degree. We can have a technician go out there, or even people like Tesla. People now at Tesla, we're looking at technicians. We're not actually looking. If you look at the P-Tech model and an article that was recently, shared, I mean, it talks about that, you know, do you really need that history and all that stuff? Not that there's nothing wrong with that. I tell people there's nothing wrong with being a doctor and attorney, right? Mm-hmm. But somebody's got to bind the books, and that was probably an apprentice. And somebody had to build the building, and that was probably an apprentice or somebody in the trade. So you have to share with folks that. And then you have to share the successes of someone who's in the trades. For example, in building trades now, they have these goggles that you can actually look through a building or through a wall, and it'll tell you where the lines are and where the 2x4s are without making holes everywhere. Or you talked about AI equipment. You know, young kids are like that. Or these watches that these young kids are working on. You don't need a 4-year degree to be fixing those or making them. You need someone that's got that skill set. And industry has played a major role in that.
Yeah, and it's not an either or.
Yeah,
I think it's important that we don't. It's an opportunity for everyone. Kids are going to take different paths, and there are those that will start there and go on. So I think we have to make sure that we're not marketing it as a either or.
Yeah, it's a both and. It's a both and. It's a both and. Go ahead, Larry, and then we're going to get to the next question.
Were you asking me to go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead, and then we're going to get to the next question.
Absolutely. Well, I think that our distinguished panelists is right on the money. One of the things we have to do is be very intentional about bringing people from the trades into the schools. Successful business people who got to the trades and started a company and employed people. And they got to understand that when they see them, they get a chance to travel, go to the NBA games, because the trades have given them an opportunity to buy a nice home, to start a company, to be able to take care of their families. And you got to bring people like that into the schools so you can develop a relationship. Then you got to do a transaction. Those businesses really need to reinvest into internships. They need to hire. And then, relationships plus a transaction, and that's working for you. And then that's when you have transformation. So relationship plus a transaction equals transformation. And you transform young people's lives. Instead of them doing something negative, they're doing something positive. And all thing they need is a light to see that someone's doing something they want to do, and it could change their life forever in a positive sense.
Good. And I'm hearing, you know, messaging, marketing, mentorship. Next question.
I'm Robin Lennon, and I'm with the Kingwood Tea Party, and I'm proud to be here with you because I see the same problems in the rural areas, also in poor white areas. I mean, and one thing that I've learned about being politically active is the more that we can come together when we come here to Austin, the more we will be able to accomplish together. The first thing that we started to do was try to look at our schools and figure out things. And we started interviewing school board members when they were running to become trustees. I was absolutely shocked at the number of what I call educrats who only spoke to that SAT level line, which black, white, Asian, it didn't matter. It was just a small percentage that they were looking at, and we're talking about college prep for everyone. College prep is not for everyone. And so I would say that if we really want to fix this, we also need to go start asking our school board trustees before we vote for them if they support the three-pronged method of success that Lieutenant Governor Patrick gave us when he was chair of Ed.
Thank you. Got a question right here?
Okay, I volunteer with youth at risk, and it doesn't matter their demographics, their education, their income, because their parents might have money, but they might be schizophrenic, suicidal, drugs, and the more money they have, it seems like there are more problems. But I admire the fact, and I appreciate the fact that you're wanting to do education. When my kids, I call my kids because I never had any, but when the kids come in, we did a test. And the test was for how do tomatoes grow, watermelon, things like that. And they would all say H-E-B, Randall's, the ones with money, Whole Foods, Trader Joe's. So my point is, I find their attention span, I was told would be 15 minutes because I was a PE instructor, right, with a elementary school before. I find their attention span is so limited that I think the programs are great, but before we get started, I do like a little analysis to see if they know about farming, agriculture, homemaking, if they know, and I make them jump rope. Why? Because it gets them so tired, one, and they get excited. So we have training that can incorporate the kids to be motivated from nothing to something. They all know the Declaration of Independence. They're studying the Texas Constitution. And these are kids that were doing things they shouldn't be doing. So in some of these programs, remember, you're not going to have the cream of the crop. And we have to include single family, dysfunctional children.
Sure. Absolutely, and I get it. You're saying we have to look, not just look at the ceiling, but look at the floor, bring the floor up, and then not always look at raising the ceiling, but also now bringing the floor up. I got you. One more question. We got time for one more question.
Yeah, well, I appreciate
so
y'all's time, but I wanted to just combine y'all's knowledge. So with my personal experience from the RGV, there's a lot of financial literacy on top of that. So to create that economic independence, it's not just creating the jobs, but how do you guys merge the, getting people to have that financial literacy on top of that?
Yeah, teaching financial literacy. And that's
we've
important.
talked about that in changing some of our curriculums to make sure that by the time people graduate, they even know how to write a check or have identified how to open a bank account. So far, that hasn't been a statewide. It hasn't passed statewide because we like to give local control and provide some aspects for different districts to teach, revise their curriculum. But that's certainly very important, and I would like to see that. We made some big changes last session. We finally included, for example, mental health as part of our health education, as well as physical health. There is a big push, sir, for financial literacy.
I want to take this opportunity to thank our panelists. We have one more question, but we're running out of time. We've got about 30 seconds. If it can be done in 30 seconds, we can kind of wrap up.
All right. And the question first revising the curriculum at community colleges. That's the question. But here's the background. I have 10 years in the legislature. My whole career was career technology while I was here. And I've worked in the community, Corpus Christi, Texas. We have jobs, 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 and we look at trying to get the people to those jobs. So we send them to community college, and the community colleges force them to first take literature, history, all of the math, all of the basics before they get to the career technology training. And so they drop out, and I get tons of records of people dropping out because they just can't pass those basics because they want to get through that and get to the trades at the campus where the trades are being taught, but they can't get there. So there's a problem with the curriculum forced on them at the community colleges.
So can I grab that one real quick, Dr. Johnson? That's one of the reasons that for this piece of legislation, we're starting at the high school level. Right now, we know, I don't know if anyone knows, the average age of the person in community college is 25, 26. That's far too late now, and even older. So what we're doing now, and that's why we're pushing and trying to grab them right in high school to provide the training while they're already getting the basics of the ABCs and what have you. Because to your point, some of the way the curriculum is designed in community college, they may get burnt out by that time, and they're much older to begin with, so they have much more financial pressure on them. So that is one of the reasons that this bill is trying to take the funding and put it at the high school level. And I had to kind of fight back on that last session because some people said, well, why not just do it at the community college level? And to your point, the people are older and the curriculum is not consistent with that. So we're getting the kids at a much younger age, so by the time they're 18, they're ready to go.
Please join me in thanking our most esteemed panel. And I want to thank everybody who came in and joined in our panel discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you.